welcome everybody. We are going to, after we call the meeting to order, I just want to let everybody know that we're going to do the students first. We're going to go out of order so that we can do the students first, so that we can send them home when they are finished. Okay, so calling the meeting to order. Pursuant to the Open Publics Meeting Act, public notice of this meeting has been given by the board secretary in the following manner: posting written notice on the official bulletin board at the Voorhees Township Public Schools Administrative Building on July 8th, 2024, sending written notice to the Courier Post on July 8th, 2024, filing written notice with the clerk of Voorhees Township on July 8th, 2024, posting on the Voorhees Township website on July 8th, 2024. Please rise for the salute to the flag. Pledge of Allegiance, I should say.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Board Secretary, will you call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Bryce?
Here.
Ms. Cadover?
Here.
Mrs. Munyon?
Here.
Mr. Rosen?
Here.
Mr. Rosner?
Here.
Mrs. Rudder?
Here.
Mrs. Stewart? Ms. Verdi?
Here.
Mrs. Watson?
Here. We will be going into executive session later, but we will, not be using this executive session. I get a resolution to approve the board minutes of the February 26, 2025 regular meeting.
So moved, Rudder.
Second, Bryce.
Online voting is open. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Nope, don't vote on that.
Don't go on, please, sorry. Okay. Okay, so we have
Oops.
Mrs. Rudder and Mr. Bryce for the first and second. Online voting is open for the minutes. There's there's 7 yeses, 1 abstention from Mrs. Watson. Motion carries.
I have no president's comments today. Fire drills and safety drills are on the attached. Harassment, intimidation, and bullying is on the attached table. Suspensions is also on the attached PDF, and bus evacuation drills are also shown on the attachment. We have no, is that right? We have no OBRA requests currently. So we are going to move to the presentation. Correct. I'm going to ask all of the board members to take the front row so that they can present to us the other direction.
Good evening. My name is Alicia Inge. I'm the principal of Voorhees Middle School. I stand here before you a very proud principal. If you've ever been to a VMS drama production, it is a spectacle. It is amazing and it is wonderful. And we owe that to some very dedicated teachers. Here tonight, you will see Miss Keith. She's been at VMS for 13 years, 9 years with the drama club. She's been the director for 7 years. And I will tell you, she works nights and weekends. It is almost a 200 student ensemble of students who dance and sing and perform, and they give their heart and their souls to these performances. They are amazing. And we also have Miss Johnson, who's been at VMS for approximately 20 years, 7 years with the drama production club, and she is the production manager. They are both dedicated reading teachers, so they teach all day, and then they spend hours after school choreographing and producing this amazing production. This year, they produced SpongeBob the Musical. So tonight, you're gonna see 2 SpongeBobs, 2 Sandy Cheeks, and 2 Patrick Stars. And my kids have me watching a lot of SpongeBob. So I love that show and I just love this production. But I wanna introduce Miss Keith and she'll introduce our amazing students.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having us here at the board meeting. So we're going to be presenting, like Mrs. Inge said, with 2 SpongeBobs, 2 Sandys, 2 Patricks, the Act 1 finale of the SpongeBob musical called Hero Is My Middle Name. So actors.
And I just wanted to say before the students begin, we really want to thank, we had a lot of board members who came, President Watson, Ms. Stewart, those are 2 that I saw. I just want to thank you for coming out, to the entire board for supporting our production and always supporting the students of VMS. We really appreciate you and you're in for a treat.
I reckon I'll miss this place most of all. Sandy! Hey, Sandy.
Sandy, I've been looking for you everywhere. We have a volcano to beat.
This town doesn't want my help. They want me gone.
You can't leave.
Let's face it, I've never fit in here. Then again, I never really fit in Texas either. I was always the odd rodent out. No one knew what to make of a girl squirrel who's into science and martial arts. I've never really felt home anywhere, really. And now it's time to dig up my acorns and push on.
Please don't leave, Sandy. We need you on the team.
If the world is gonna end tomorrow, wallowing in sorrow isn't where I wanna be. 'Cause there isn't a catastrophe that could ever measure up to me. Sandy, just try it and see. Come on. Hero is our middle name. Fixing trouble is our game. Just give it the all know how. There's no better time than now. Don't give up and don't give in. Yeah. The right answer swim. Courage is your claim to fame. When hero is your middle name.
That's nice, boys, but mine's Jennifer, and no one believes my science is real.
Your machines, they made a real prediction. It's not science fiction.
But no one wants to listen at all. When the writing's on that old seawall.
But your friends need you to heed the call. Sandy, we need you. Patch can help climb the volcano, but you need to handle the stopping it from erupting part.
Because we really do not know how to when time's running out really, really fast, but no pressure.
Pressure. I have an idea. Figure 1, diagram of a volcanic eruption caused by rapid pressure buildup in the magma chamber. Figure 2, if this pressure is released, no eruption will occur. Figure 3, I've designed an explosive device with a timer to drop inside the volcano. Figure 4, with the timer set to detonate at the precise moment of eruption. Figure 5, unleashing a deluge of bubbles which will block the pressure and prevent the blast.
You lost me at 1.
The point is, it could work.
So, you'll help us?
Boys, I'm still gonna push on from this town of yours, but you're my friends. So I say we give this idea a shot.
3 heroes to the rescue!
Team at race to the top.
Oh, Scott!
just wanted to introduce our actors. So we have Braden McHugh as SpongeBob, Callan Zaum as SpongeBob, Ryan Martin as Sandy, Veronica Hernandez as Sandy, Amit Gavai as Patrick, and Sam Provisor as Patrick.
It was exceptional. Everybody was having the best time. All performed like pros. We are so incredibly proud of all of you. So thank you for making us all so proud.
Never gets old, literally the best part of this job. Okay, so board secretary report.
Thank you. I'm going to give a little background on the presentation of the 25-26 tentative budget. The process of the budget is we have to approve to submit it to the county. The county reviews it. They come back to us with any questions, and then we have a hearing on the budget at our meeting in May. So I will give a little overview right now, and the board will vote to submit it to the county for their review. Board motion, finance item number 19.10 is the budget itself. And it lays out what the general fund is, special revenue fund, we have no debt service fund, and the total budget and tax levy. The fiscal year 25-26 budget is $64,323,791. It's basically a flat budget once the construction projects are removed. Each year we do different construction projects and they're funded by capital reserve. So in order to compare one year to the next, we reverse them out. And the budget is flat. It decreased actually by 0.99%, which is less than 1%. All current education programs have been maintained. The net state aid that we received is $5,249,255, which is relatively flat with a decrease of $253,064. The local tax levy is $53,494,899, and that includes an increase of 2%, which is the cap amount that you can increase the budget by without adding banked cap or any other questions. That amount, the 2% is $1,048,920. The 2% increase on our local tax levy in our budget equates to a 1.93% increase to taxpayers. And that's because the ratables increased. So the tax levy gets spread out amongst a higher number. So that's actually good that it's less than 2%. The impact on the average house valued at $263,518 is $82.52 per year or $6.87 per month. Based on the property tax values and income in Voorhees Township, the state's calculation of the local fair share is actually $61,260,196. And in comparison, the tax levy that we have is $53,494,000. So they're saying our fair share would be 61 million. Our tax levy is 53 million. It's hard to go up to the number that they want because that's much more than 2% of an increase. In fiscal year 25, the local tax levy represented 77% of our general fund budget. So most of our budget is funded by the local tax levy versus state aid. For comparison purposes, nearby towns such as Evesham, Mount Laurel, and Medford, their tax levy ranges from 80.5% to 85.4% of their local tax levy. So we come in less than those towns when it's in comparison. Included in this budget are capital projects and required maintenance. It's less this year because we have done a lot of large projects in the past. over the past 5 years. In fiscal year 25-26, the following reserve funds will be used for these capital projects. Of capital reserve, we're using $680,472, and it will be used for additional security cameras and the changing out of door hardware. We started to replace door hardware throughout the district, and we will complete it in this upcoming year. There's also going to be a playground upgrade at Crescent, and part of that will be funded by CER and partially by capital reserve. Our maintenance reserve, we're withdrawing $456,363, and that can be used towards required maintenance that's in our budget. We have a small amount left in our emergency reserve of $4,049. That's actually tied to interest that we earned on the amount that was in there before, and that can only be withdrawn for healthcare premiums that are above the 4% increase and security. So we're taking that out and applying it towards our healthcare premiums, which went up 12.1%. The balance that's remaining in the capital reserves for future projects for capital reserve is $2 million. For maintenance reserve is $500,000. We've had no bond issues in the past 15 years, and all construction projects have been completed using capital reserve and grant funds. The budget includes the purchase of desktop and laptop computers, HVAC equipment, and textbook adoptions being financed through a lease purchase over the useful life of the asset, which is either 3 or 5 years. And 19.4 in the agenda is to authorize to go out for lease purchase financing. Our financing is really like municipal financing, so it's a lower interest rate. Again, that's not considered bond debt. That's just a financing. It's a lease financing over 3 or 5 years. Other things that we did in the budget or ways that we balance the budget are we allocated $150 per student for school supplies, and that is based on historical trends. Health insurance and prescription premiums, as I said, went up 12.1%. That seems a little high, but the state health benefits went up even a lot more. I think theirs went up, what, 17%? Yeah. So, I mean, it's good that we're not in state health benefits at this point, because ours is 12.1%. We're part of the school's health insurance fund, pooled insurance fund. There's contractual increases for the various salaries. And the CPI is designated by the state at 3.57%. And what that's used for is if we renew any of our transportation routes, the vendor can increase it by 3.57%. That's a lesser rate than we've had in the last 2 years. The last 2 years, they could increase it 5.81 or 5.87. Before that, it used to only go up like 1%, a little over 1%. So it's good that it's going down again. But again, it's difficult to balance a budget because you have these certain items that are going up and you're only raising taxes by 2%. So there has to be some, looking at different accounts to see where we can change things. One of the things that we're changing is we're going to consolidate the kindergarten bus routes. There used to be bus routes designated just for kindergarten students. We're going to incorporate the kindergarten students onto it'll be a K through 5 bus route rather than 1st through 5th grade. So that will save some money there. We're also changing the registered behavior technician RBT structure by offering stipends to instructional aides and obtaining competitive bids for the contracted RBT services. We're restructuring the use of our lead teachers, and we reduced various line items as appropriate. We went through every line item of the budget to see whether we used that line or not, and then we took some away, we reduced some, and all that to make a pretty much flat budget with a 2% tax increase. The detail, like I said, is all listed on finance item 19.10. That shows the general fund amount. The special revenue fund is our grant fund. That also includes the preschool budget. The local tax levy, as I said, is $53,494,899. We also, in the motion, it shows what the capital reserve withdrawal is. It shows what the capital reserve is being used for. It shows the maintenance reserve withdrawal, the emergency reserve withdrawal, and also we have to put out what the travel regulations are. That's really mostly seminars and classes that people might go to. That's just something that has to be disclosed as well. So that's one of the items in that category. So that's all I have for the budget, but that will be voted on tonight to submit to the county for their review. Thank you.
Thank you. Superintendent report.
Good evening, everyone. I am joining you virtually. I'm home ill today. I wish I were there with you. My report is really brief. First, I want to draw all your attention to the back of the room where our mural, and hopefully you will notice that we have added a new mascot, and that is our baby cub. And that's what our Voorhees Early Childhood Development Center will now be, cubs. We have added that, so I want to thank Ms. McGill, she's an art teacher at Crescent, for putting that together so fast, but the staff at the Early Child Development Center went through the whole process to name their new mascot. So I think it's just the cutest thing that they're going to be a big. And I also want to acknowledge Ms. Keith and Ms. Johnson and all the parents, staff, and students of Voorhees Elementary School for the great drama performance. I was able to go to the performance and I sat at the edge of my seat the entire time. It was an absolutely wonderful performance. So I want to. And then finally, for my report, I just want to announce that on April 10th, the Moskowitz and I will do a parent workshop, and we'll go through all the district initiatives that we have in over the last 3 years. Parents update on the initiatives. So that's going to be April 10th, and our parents will receive a link to join that workshop, and it will be start at 7 o'clock. And that ends my report.
Thank you very much. Can I get an Academic Excellence Committee report?
Sure. So the Academic Excellence Committee met on Monday, March 3rd for a little over an hour. It was myself, Mr. Bryce, Ms. Kedover, Dr. Hackett, Mr. Moskowitz. We talked about a lot of things. We don't have many things that are coming up for votes. The only thing was that the wording for the committee overview for policy has been revised, and we were in agreement with that. We discussed spotting misinformation for the children in curriculum, which is being taught in library, social studies, and writing classes as of now. We discussed 9th grade readiness and how we can partner with Eastern in the future to find out how our students are performing once they go to 9th grade. We discussed the WIN program that is taking place in 2nd grade. So far, there has been movement of the children upwards in their small groups, and the staff feel that it has been a successful program, and we will be looking to incorporate that into 2nd grade next year as well. The students who participated in Saturday Spectacular were invited to take a survey, and we talked about their results. 48 students were surveyed to see how they feel about their participation in the programs. All of their responses were positive. It was really sweet to see that a lot of them feel like they're making friends and that they're having fun and they're enjoying the programs. We discussed AI training for the staff. And then finally, we had a conversation about Genesis grades being updated in real time at the elementary school and possibly getting the students logins at the middle school so that they can check their grades by themselves. And those were all the things we talked about. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ms. Rudder, I believe you're also, Mrs. Rudder, you're also covering for Policy Committee. Can you provide that report as well? Oh, I missed Munyan. I'm so sorry.
You're fine, you're fine.
Got that wrong. Got that wrong. Ms. Munyan.
The Policy Committee met on March 4th, 2025 for over an hour. Dr. Hackett, Mr. Moskowitz, and board members Julie Kedover, Crystal Munyan, Julianne Verdi, and Jennifer Stewart were present. For first read, the committee reviewed and recommends for full board approval the following revised policies and regulations. P0155 board committees, P5111 eligibility of resident, non-resident students. Note the committee wants to make clear that there is no discretion as to whether to allow non-teaching staff to enter their preschool age child into a lottery to attend the Voorhees preschool, as is the option for teaching staff. P5701 academic integrity. For second read, the committee reviewed and recommends for full board approval the following revised policies and regulations. P2365 acceptable use of generative artificial intelligence. P5512 harassment, intimidation, and bullying. PNR 5533 student smoking. P5710 student grievance. PNR 7441, electronic surveillance in school buildings and on school grounds. P 8500, food services. PNR 9320, cooperation with law enforcement agencies. P 0164, conduct of board meetings. P 8600, student transportation. For discussion, the committee explored P 0164.01, conduct of board members during public meetings. PNR 5516, use of electronic communication and recording devices. Middle school cell phone pilot survey results, and immigration policy guidance. Our next meeting is scheduled for April 29th. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Munyon. Mr. Rosen, can I get a finance committee report?
Sure. The Finance Committee met on Wednesday, March 5th, 2025. In attendance was Julie Ketover, Crystal Munyon, Dr. Hackett, Helen Haley, and Daniel Curie. The Finance Committee engaged in an extensive review and discussion of the 2025-2026 budget, covering changes to the state aid calculation and its components, the tax levy, which does not exceed the 2% cap, detailed appropriations and significant assumptions, funding for technology, special education, construction projects, and preschool expansion. It is important to note, no education programs have been cut or reduced. The tax levy is held within the 2% cap and is, for the average homeowner, the increase is under $100 for the year. The tax levy is $7.8 million lower than the state's calculation of the amount the residents are expected to be taxed, called the local fair share. And the percentage of the Voorhees school budget funded by the tax levy is a lower percentage than neighboring districts. Based on fiscal year 2025 data available, Voorhees is 77% compared to more than 80% for neighboring districts. Comparing the 2025-2026 budget to the prior year, after excluding capital projects from both years, budget appropriations are lower by 1%. Essentially, this budget reflects a good value for the township. The Finance Committee recommends its approval. The other items discussed at the meeting was one, the Special Education Medicaid Initiative Action Plan to address that some parents neglected to sign consent forms for services rendered to their child pursuant to an IEP, which hinders full reimbursement to the district. The district received only 97% reimbursement, which is below the target of 100%. Two, submission of employment contracts to Camden County for their review for the assistant superintendent and business administrator. Three, the progress payment for the Early Childhood Development Center. And four, awarding contracts based on bids received funded by the ROD grants for HVAC and boilers. And the Finance Committee recommends approval on all four of those items. Additionally, the Finance Committee discussed the transportation of kindergarteners, and a Zoom meeting for parents is to be scheduled. We also discussed that additional options are being evaluated for the year 2026-2027 to improve the efficiency rating and cost effectiveness of transportation. In April, there will be 95 pre-K students to begin at the Early Child Development Center. We also discussed the school building capacity and residential construction within Voorhees, and there's ongoing discussion and monitoring of that. And we also had briefly discussed that about the original Crescent School building. There was a tour conducted by the Voorhees Township Historical Society, and there's ongoing discussions on grant sources and renovations. The next Finance Committee meeting is April 30th.
Much. Mr. Rosner, can you close us out with a Personnel Committee?
Yes, Personnel Committee met Thursday, March 4th. Myself, Maureen Rutter, Ms. Rutter, Dr. Hackett, and Mr. Moskowitz were in attendance. We discussed a confidential settlement, a confidential employment issue, opening of 3 IA positions, which we are in favor of. We discussed submitting the assistant superintendent and the business administrator contracts to the county. We discussed preliminary work on the options for the 26-27 calendar. And we also discussed a volunteer professional development day in July for teachers. And that is it.
Great, thank you so much. I do want to call out, first I want to thank all of the chair people, as well as the members of these committees for doing such an excellent job and being so incredibly diligent. As you can all see, we are sharing much more detail with regards to what is happening in our committees, so that it is a more seamless board meeting, and you can also understand why and how we're making certain decisions. And we hope that the audience and the community appreciates kind of a little bit more transparency with that process. And I want to also specifically thank Julie Ketover, because she filled in. I've done a lot of traveling and she has extra committees on her plate because I have not been around as much as I would like. So I wanted to say thank you. All right, audience participation. Anyone wishing to address the board, please approach the side table on the right and write your name and address on the login sheet. While the board is limited in its ability to respond to the public on matters involving personnel, litigation, negotiations, and attorney-client privilege, the board will now hear comments from the public relating to items on the agenda for this board meeting. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. The board will not take action this evening. You will be notified at some later time by letter, electronic mail, telephone, or in the context of a later board meeting of any action the board does take. Yes, please come to this. Just make sure the mic gets turned on when you come up. Okay, perfect. Thank you. You're fine. Take your time.
My iPad does not like to open all the way in a stand, and I don't want it to be in the way of the microphone. Good evening, Voorhees Township Board of Education members and administration. My name is Lauren Doyle, and I'm speaking to you tonight as a parent, educator, and community member. As I stand before you, I have many questions and concerns over events that have occurred to my daughter over the past month at Voorhees Middle School with regard to HIB, and including that will be heard this morning. I'm a fierce believer in the power and value of voice. When my daughter came to me at the beginning of February to tell me that another student was calling her fat, ugly, a mole rat, and spreading salacious gossip of a sexual nature, I said, "Have you told an adult?" This continued over the course of a week, and each time she came home and she said, "I spoke to an adult," and the answer was similar. I was told the other student will never admit to it, so they can't do anything about it. She spoke to adults 4 times. As an educator for 19 years in the state of New Jersey, as a PhD in education scholar, and as someone who is working towards their credentialing in school administration, I knew 2 things. Policy and statute cannot be selectively enforced, and my child was being gaslit. On February 20th, I emailed Mrs. Inge, Mr. Winsett, and Mr. Boyanelli, citing the state statute for harassment, intimidation, and bullying laws in New Jersey, as well as VTPS, BOE policies 5512 and 5600. While there was immediate action in terms of an investigation being launched and the HIB being substantiated, there was not immediate action in my daughter and the other student being separated. In the following days, the harassment of my daughter continued, and she was struck by a ball in phys ed that was thrown by one of the aggressor's friends. When questioned by Mr. Winsett, the PE teacher initially said it was part of the game, but my daughter was outside of the tennis courts. She was not being supervised. There was no separation of the students because of the lack of supervision. Due to the nature of the ball strike in combination with a previous injury sustained from wrestling, she now needs 6 weeks of physical therapy. The harassment by the student and his friends continued to escalate in the halls, during lunch, and in phys ed. After consulting with an attorney, I filed a second HIB online. Still, after the second HIB filing, more action was not taken until I included Dr. Hackett on a follow-up email 48 hours later, at which point immediate action was taken. My daughter has had physical and mental health damages as a result of the lack of action by Voorhees Middle School administration. On February 24th, I was forced to call for form care, and mobile response was deployed immediately in an attempt to seek mental health stabilization. Fortunately, I have the tools, resources, and knowledge to help her, but I'm left wondering why we don't have better resources in place as a school, community, and township. When why was my child further victimized and not protected? Why has there not been conflict resolution or mediation between these students? What actions are going to be put into place to help the aggressor resolve their own internal conflict. Obviously, this child needs help as well. As a community, why do we accept this as a climate and culture in a place where our children are meant to go and grow every day? It is our responsibility to be the change we want to see in the world. The lack of action, restorative justice, as well as regular and strategic school-wide prevention practices show me that the administration is complacent with students acting in these manners. Webinars are simply not enough. Instead of picking up the pieces after the trauma, it is my hope that there will be actionable changes steering our children to become civically engaged, empathetic, and compassionate leaders in the world and of tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. The play was amazing. In fact, the two teachers who ran it also were graduates of the school. In fact, both teachers who did it, their parents are also work for the school district. I have a couple observations on the agenda items. One, it was a great great discussion of the reports, but once again, we didn't change the order of the items, so we would not hear any of the comments from the committees until after we have public participation. So I would hope that that policy would be changed 164. So if we were going to talk, that we could then have a public participation before anything's voted on. Two, I was reading the policy 5111. I wasn't sure. It says that the executive county superintendent, it sets up what our tuition rate would be. I was wondering what it is. Two, on that policy, we also now changed it that a non-resident who is in the process of buying, building, or renting can come here for 12 weeks before living here and then have to show proof after that and then pay tuition. Currently, if they want to come here in the process of that, they would have to pay tuition. And I've checked a lot of districts, and a lot of districts are still having them pay. It also becomes a catch-21 that if I say I sign a lease, then I never sign a lease, then you're playing catch up to find out that. So we've now changed that they would be able to come here for 12 weeks, even though at that time they're not a resident. I get the hardship, especially building, but at that point, they're not a Voorhees taxpayer. And most districts, I checked about 7, still have that policy, but we've adjusted that. The next one I was going to ask is the audio surveillance on policy 7441. I know currently we have video. Is the goal in the policy to add audio? And if they add audio, because right now all of our signs say clearly video, is the goal to add audio? And then if you add audio, what cameras would you be adding it to if that's in case? I struggle with that idea of having audio throughout the school. I understand as security, they might say it might help us hear what's going on, but at the same point in time, I think it's a slippery slope. I can definitely see an advantage, but if we're deciding to add audio, which I'm not saying we are, I'm just asking, I would have some concerns with that. And a lot of people I spoke to seem to have an issue with that. So it might be moot, might just be we're adding new cameras. I also wanted to congratulate 2 retirees, Leslie Mazer, John Yezi, and I did have one more thing. The bill paid list, the format's changed substantially. I'm sure it's probably according to category, but now when I look at the new bill list, I have to really go through to find what's being paid, whereas this one, I can just go up by the name. Yep. And I have a couple questions preschool, but I'll do that in the regular open portion. Thank you.
Being no additional questions, board comments. Hearing no board comments, we are moving to the business portion of the meeting. We will move into the business portion of the meeting. We want to We want to recognize that it may appear as if the board takes action with very little comment and in many cases unanimous vote. Before an item is placed on a board agenda, it is thoroughly reviewed by the superintendent and administration. The superintendent then presents the recommended action to the appropriate board committee and works with the committee to ensure that the members fully understand the recommendation. Once the committee is satisfied, the item is placed on the board agenda for discussion and action at a public meeting. Board agendas are made available to the board members several days in advance of the meeting, giving us ample time to review the agenda and have all of our questions answered. Further, we are kept up to date between meetings on the ongoing work of the administration and the important issues in the district. All of these efforts ensure that we are well informed and prepared to take action at our meetings. Moving to policy, can I get a motion to approve all of the items under policy?
So moved.
Second.
Crystal?
Online voting is open. Motion unanimously passes.
Curriculum, can I get a motion to approve all of the items under curriculum?
So moved, Rudder.
Second, Birdie.
Online voting is open. Motion unanimously passes.
Personnel, can I get a motion to approve all of the items under personnel as recommended by the superintendent?
So moved, Rosner.
Second, Cadover.
Online voting is open. Motion unanimously passes.
The board also wants to congratulate our retirees, Mr. John Yezi and Leslie Mazer. Thank you for your service and good luck in your retirement. Moving to transportation. Can I get a motion to approve all of the items under transportation?
So moved, Rosen.
Second, Rudder.
Online voting is open. Motion unanimously passes.
Moving to buildings and grounds, can I get a motion to approve all of the items under buildings and grounds?
So moved, Rosen.
Second, Munyon.
Online voting is open. Motion unanimously passes.
Moving to finance, can I get a motion to approve all of the items under finance?
So moved, Rosen.
Second, Rosner.
Online voting is open. Motion unanimously passes.
Moving to our second public comment, anyone wishing to address the board, please approach the side table on the right and write your name and address on the login sheet. While the board is limited in its ability to respond to the public on matters involving personnel, litigation, negotiations, and attorney-client privilege, the board will now hear comments from the public. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. The board will not take action this evening. You will be notified at some later time by letter, electronic mail, telephone, or in the context of a later board meeting of any action the board does take.
I'll start off by wishing everybody a happy holiday because I don't think we have a board meeting between then. Just had a couple questions on the preschool. I wasn't sure if we're on target still for the opening. And with 95 students, I'm sure we'll get more in, and I think that was a great thing, having non-resident staff be able to have their children attend that. I think I know the answer. Is there any thought in having some of the preschool kids that are at our outside providers come in? I'm sure I think I know the answer, but I wasn't sure. And I appreciate a couple things. I just wanted to see how we're using our staff, because if we only have 95 students now, and I'm sure some will be Gibbsboro, we'll be able to utilize all that staff that we hired. I'm sure it'll grow, and I'm sure hopefully it'll get higher than that. But making sure that we could utilize them. And also if we were taking the time now to utilize some of the staff to really get them trained. So I know our nurse is at our school. She trains, she goes over there. She's already setting up how to do her paperwork, how to get ready for all that. So I wasn't sure if this is a great opportunity, if it's already being done, like the administrator could actually be at Crescent, which is where the preschool is currently at, to get a firsthand feel, especially if some of the kids come there in the future. Or if everybody is doing things like that. That's just as a resident point of view. And I wasn't sure, I'm sure we have preliminary plans since the Department of Ed just laid off 50% of their staff. We get 8% of our funding from the federal government. When the states get less money, it hits, if we have parameters, what we're looking at, because even though our state aid only went down a little bit, Eastern's went down quite a bit, and all that. So I know those are things you have to juggle with. So I know you're already working on those, but I have concern just for the fact that paying attention to politics. Thank you.
Yeah. Not seeing any additional comments, moving to board comments. Not seeing any comments. We are going into executive session. Yeah, I know. I was contemplating giving a time, but I'm not going to do it. He's right.
We're supposed to give an approximate time.
Approximate time. I get it wrong every time. Go over 30 minutes. Let's go with 30 minutes. We'll try. Okay, so whereas the Open Publics Meeting Act authorizes boards of education to meet in executive session under certain circumstances, whereas the Open Publics Meeting Act requires the board to adopt a resolution at a public meeting to go into private session. Now, therefore, be it resolved, the Voorhees Township Board of Education, that it is necessary to meet in executive session to discuss certain items involving matters of personal confidentiality rights, including but not limited to staff and or student discipline matters specifically, as well as matters involving personnel issues, including but not limited to the employment, appointment, termination of employment, terms of conditions of employment, evaluation of performance, promotion, or discipline of any public office or employee. Be it further resolved that any of discussion held by the board which does not need to remain confidential will be made public as soon as feasible. The minutes of the executive session will not be disclosed until the need for confidentiality no longer exists. Further resolved that the board will
We'll
in
return to
action.
open session, but there's no action.
Yeah.
There's not gonna be any.
We will return to open session, but there will be no action to conduct the conclusion of the executive session. Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn to executive session?
So moved, Ferdy.
Second, Rudder.
All in favor?
Aye. Motion to return to regular session.
So moved, Rosner.
Second, Rudder.
Rosner on the first, Rudder on the second, to return.
For the record, that was 28 minutes. We just want everybody to, nobody cares. Nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Does please, someone care?
We'll return. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Next meeting is May 7th at 7 PM in the administration building. Can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved, Ferdy.
Second, Kedover.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.